And now for something completely different yet again. If you've been following the channel recently, you might have seen some of the vehicles that I've been pinching from the good people at Retro Classic Car up in North Yorkshire. Well, you see, for those guys, it's the 60s, which is really the era for classic cars. But on occasion, they do make the odd exception. I actually started my series with them with one of those, a 1997 BMW 8 Series, but today we're going back in time and we're going straight to the 50s, because today I am driving a 1957 Chevrolet 210. This thing is absolutely sensational. This is one of those cars that I don't think you have to like to appreciate. The amount of effort and work that has gone into building this car is absolutely staggering. Now, this is currently up for sale for £38,000, but I guarantee you there is no way this car's previous owner spent any less than that simply on the work. This car has undergone a nut and bolt restoration, including a brand spanking new Crate 350 V8 engine, a new automatic gearbox, a full respray in this amazing high impact blue paint, a wonderful interior with some amazing little details like this incredibly sparkly dash here, beautiful red leather, and the whole thing feels just stunning. This car is a prime example of the Restomod. It's for the classic car enthusiast who loves looking at, listening to, but most importantly, driving his or her classic without having to worry about will it start, what am I going to find under it every single time you go out to enjoy it. This is exactly the sort of car, if you want to just be able to get out there and take it for a drive, that you want to be buying. There are a few little modern touches in here which do make it that much more usable. You have a modern-ish radio with what looks like a cassette slot here that fits into the original space for a radio. You have USB 12-volt sockets down here, and you got some modern gauges as well, so you can keep an eye on your temperatures and everything else. Now, it's not quite up to temperature yet, and I'm going to give it a little bit longer before I dust off the cobwebs. But this car is also hiding a couple of other secrets. Namely, it has a valved exhaust, meaning that when I want to, I can trundle along here, disturbing little to no one. However, if you push a little button down there, you can, on command, wake the dead. We're going to play with that one a little bit more later on. The steering and driving of this car is actually pretty pleasant. I've just got out of an 81 Corvette, and before that a 71 Mustang. This steers closer to the Mustang than the Corvette, but you're under no illusions as to what the chassis wants to do. The steering is light, as you would hope it would be. The engine is plenty flexible, not ridiculously powerful, and I am of course being very cautious with it still being cold and with these roads being still a little bit damp. Quite honestly, I couldn't tell you if the brakes are any good because I daren't get up enough speed to actually test them out properly. They're probably a little bit more sensitive than you'd like them to be, but they do at least give you some confidence. Of the cars I've driven today, the washer wipers are probably the most effective, which is to say they do remove some of the water from the windscreen. But this is really the sort of car where you want to just cruise along at no speed at all. I'm doing 35 miles an hour right now, 35 miles an hour, and I'm perfectly satisfied. This car is another example of that classic era of American cars where they made the vehicle absolutely enormous, and yet there isn't masses of room in it. You'd certainly get people in the back. You could happily take 4 adults out, and there's reasonable space in the boot too. But this is the sort of car where you're not really worried about going fast. You're simply concerned with looking and sounding the part. And with that in mind, let's tickle the ivories, shall we? hit that A button and it turns this from a simple car into an elaborate device for turning unleaded fuel into freedom. What a thing. It's possibly one of the best views out of any car I've ever seen. There's weird little details, I don't even know what to call them. I mean, they look like torpedoes. I'm expecting to find a button in here somewhere that I can press and they'll fire off and get some fear out of my way. This thing really is a statement of a car. It truly is. Now, the paint, I have to tell you, is not exactly the sort of thing that Chevrolet purists are going to like, because it's a Ford colour. High Impact Blue Pearl, apparently it's called. There we are. The engine's probably good for about 300 horsepower. It's not a fast car, but then in something without seatbelts, I'm not sure that you really want ultimate speed. The car actually spent the majority of its life in California, and it was brought over here in 2017, and work began, I believe, almost immediately. It is really a shame that its owner has sold it, but it's providing a unique opportunity for someone to get a hold of something quite so stunning without having to spend the money themselves. There are some classic cars which you buy and you know you're going to have to do some work on almost immediately, or at least in the near future, and this is simply not one of those. I must say, for a 1950s car, this does drive very well. I haven't driven many 50s American cars. In fact, this may be the first. I've driven older American cars. I've driven stuff from the sort of First World War period and also the 30s. But this is really nice. It feels very solid, feels very well put together. I suspect much better than any car that came out of the factory ever did. It even steers really well. It sits real hunkered down. You got to be careful in sort of tight turns at low speeds because it can rub a little bit just on that corner. Otherwise, it's utterly magnificent. A real proper car to just be cruising about in, and that's what this is. Pure and simple cruiser. Nothing more, nothing less. Better keep the exhaust in quiet mode unless I disturb any of the residents of next door. This really is a surprise hit for me, this car, because ordinarily this wouldn't be the sort of thing that I'd be into at all. 1950s whale-tail Americana, no way. Massive car with no space in it. If I'm going to have one of those, I'll have the 8 Series, thank you very much. But it just works. It really does. There's something about these old American cars that's just so honest. I mean, it's going to drink. Like, it's really going to drink. And you're probably going to be paranoid about somebody scratching the paint. But it's also beautiful. What a thing to look at. I mean, really sensational. Visibility is actually very good too. All electric windows as well, including some at the back that kind of fold down. Very clever. Very unusual. And unlike many genuine classics that say, like, this isn't a classic car, wouldn't really have any concerns about taking this on a big trip either. Be very confident in doing that with it. Power! Ah, 40 miles an hour has never felt so antisocial before. What a thing. Well, there we go. That's another look at a very unusual car for me. Ordinarily wouldn't say I'd be into this sort of thing at all, but this really is quite special. Hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, please do like, comment below, and subscribe if you haven't already, because there'll hopefully be plenty more like it. Bye-bye.